Hi, I'm Riley Henderson, and this is my Media Studies project.
Around the world, billions of people abuse the use of smartphones every single day, and this number just keeps growing. Smartphones are used in our day-to-day lives, but are they being misused too often? Although smartphones can be a very helpful tool, the way they are being used can affect young adults' mental health and physical health in a very negative way.
Are smartphones destroying our generation? Wherever you go, you most likely are bound to see a young person tied to their phone. But why is this? Studies show that iPhone users or any smartphone users unlock their phones 80 times a day.
So, why do we always feel the need to check our smartphones? Why are young adults constantly tied to their phones? It has gotten to the point where most teens, like myself, get very anxious when they have been away from their smartphone for a very long time, or if they lose it, or it goes missing. And when they're just not around it, they get anxiety usually. I wonder why that happens. A bad habit that teens face with their smartphones is addiction. Needing to be around it and checking it constantly. This is a common negative side effect of improper use of your cell phone. Apple says that iPhone users unlock their phone 80 times a day. Even worse, research from Discount found that we tap, type, and swipe on our smartphones more than 2,600 times a day on average. The majority of us check our phones in front of our kids, during meetings, while we eat, while we should be sleeping, and that is just not a good time to go on your phone because there's a time and a place.
Research shows that the chemical dopamine is released into your brain when you're going on your phone. So you may be thinking, what's dopamine? So dopamine is a brain chemical that literally makes you happy. It is released every time you receive something on our phones. So it could be a text from a loved one, a message on Facebook, a Snapchat, whatever it is, it makes you want more of it because it makes you happy. Dopamine feels good, so we keep checking our phones hoping to get a little hit of it every single time.
I think that iPhones have definitely impacted our generation. They make it so people feel they can't have privacy and time away from social media. It's made our generation always feel like they need to be connected through our phones, but has lowered the person-to-person connections or interactions. It has also made this generation not aware of what's really going on in our daily surroundings, for example, being on their phone the whole bus ride instead of looking out the window and see where they're. Improper use of smartphones can impact teens' health, mentally and physically, in a negative way. One of the more common ways that smartphones are being misused is when they go on them before bed. This is not a good habit because looking at your cell phone before you are trying to fall asleep can impact your sleep schedule and keep you up longer than you intended. Smartphones are designed to entertain us and provide us with information. Before bed, we are trying to fall asleep. The last thing we need is more information and more entertainment. This causes your brain to be alert and can push back the time you are going to fall asleep at. Dr. Walia says that checking your phone before bed stimulates the brain so we are more active and awake. Even just a quick check can engage your brain and prolong sleep. Many people recommend that you turn off your phone and put your phone away at least 1 hour before you go to bed so you can relax your brain, turn off your thoughts, and have the best sleep possible. We need to learn that there is a time and a place for your cell phone, and if you are constantly checking it and get anxious being away from it, that is not a good sign. This is unhealthy and you need to get help. Whether it is something like crossing the street or driving, being in a social situation, like just looking down at your smartphone instead of interacting with the person next to you and starting a conversation. In my opinion, I do believe that smartphones have a really big negative effect on our generation, but I also think that it's not the smartphone itself, but I think it's the way it's being used. Because you can have bad apps like social media, like checking up on your likes and comments, all that, texting, Snapchatting, like all that bad stuff you don't want to focus on. You can replace it with like workout apps, like healthy eating apps, meditation apps, things like that, you know what I mean? And also, like when you use it, if you use it before bed, that's a very bad thing because it can stimulate your brain and affect your sleep schedule, so that's not good. So the time you use it, I think, is really important, and how long you use it, obviously. So I think if you're using it for hours and hours a day, that's very bad compared to if you're just using it once in a while and you're using it wisely. So I do believe that they are destroying a generation, but I think it's the fact that we do get addicted to it and we can't control it. So I think we should be more aware of it and help people out and like really just make people more aware so they can change these bad phone habits and hopefully they'll have a happier life. Another example of smartphones being bad on teens' development is smartphones being used in the classroom. This is not good because smartphones can be a very big distraction. Students can easily get distracted, which in that case can hurt students' attention spans and can affect their learning and development in a negative way. Some students tune out of lessons and spend time checking social media, playing games, texting, or shopping online on their cell phones instead of paying attention to the teacher or prof and the lesson that's going on. One research study revealed that students who multitask on a smartphone during class scored 11% lower on an exam that tested their knowledge of the lecture. Students who sat behind those multitaskers scored 17% lower. And that's crazy because it says that when you're on your phone, you're not only distracting yourself, but you're distracting the people around you too, which is not good. The apps that teens have on their phones can have a huge effect on their mental and physical health, and that can be destroying a generation. Because social media is a big part of the smartphones and is a big part of what is used on smartphones. Negative side effects of social media on smartphones can be low self-confidence, anxiety, and depression. Social media can cause teens to be in constant comparison and make them feel like their life is never good enough. This can cause low self-esteem and can make teens feel depressed. It creates this insane pressure that you constantly need to post pictures on Instagram or videos on Snapchat, or else you must not have a social life. It is ridiculous. Teens should limit their use of social media on their smartphones or just simply delete the app altogether. In my opinion as well, I believe that a negative effect of smartphones in this generation is kids and children and young adults get exposed to things way too early on, and most of it's like false information. Like, I think that it's kind of a bit frightening that you could just Google any word you want and it'll pop right up. So like that goes for like bad words like nudity, inappropriate things, and as well as just like other like information. Like, I just don't think it's good at all for like someone who's around like 9, 10, 11, 12 to have access to that stuff. Because I know for me personally, I had my first iPod when I was 9 years old, and like a group of friends and I and stuff, we would Google like little inappropriate words. We thought it was funny, like, but now I look back at it and I'm like, that's just like, it's so messed up, because you should not be looking at those things or like thinking about those things, you know what I mean? Like, so I think that's a really negative aspect, is very young exposure to things that they should not be seeing. Another issue with smartphones in this generation is we're constantly occupied. We always have a smartphone to keep us occupied, and when that's taken away, we don't know how to entertain ourselves. And I think that's a really big issue because it's not good at all. Like, I remember when I was going to my cottage, my data didn't work on my phone, and I was like, oh my god, like, what am I gonna do? Because like I couldn't go on any of my like social medias that would need Wi-Fi, or like the games on my phone that need Wi-Fi. So I would be like, okay, I could read a book or I could do something. And it's just kind of pathetic when you think of it, that most people in our generation can't occupy ourselves, and we need to always have something on the phone that immediately entertains us, and our brain's always constantly doing something. And I think that goes as well with when you're trying to fall asleep, is that's why you should stay away from your phone a few hours like before you try to fall asleep, because you're just gonna get in a spiral of always finding stuff, always like being occupied and seeing new content, and that's just not good at all. So we should really learn to have a moment where we don't have our phone to occupy ourselves, and we can like figure out what to do on our own. But within saying all this, there's also a positive side to social media. Some of this includes when you're away from family, like at school, you can FaceTime with them. It's a lot easier to communicate with people, which is awesome. There's different news apps and stuff, so you can see what's going on in the world. That's good. Also on Facebook, there's the yard sale, so you can sell stuff, which that's also a really cool thing too, instead of like Kijiji and all that. So I do believe that there's a positive side and a negative. And I think the fact that younger people like myself, we get way too attached to our cell phones and we can't put them down, and I think that's when it's the bad side, and that's when it is affecting our generation in a negative way compared more to positive. So they need to find different ways to not be so attached to their cell phones. For me personally, the way I fit into this scenario, I would say it's a bit of both. Like, a smartphone can be your best friend, and it can also be my evil twin at times, because when I get caught up in stuff like social media and all that, that's when it's an evil twin. Or when I realize that I'm not getting as many texts as other people, and like just silly things like that that don't matter. But I think my smartphone's a very good tool when I have to figure out what time the bus is coming and directions and stuff like that. I think that's when it comes into place where it's really awesome, and same with calling your family and stuff. But one thing I will mention is with parents, I think it can be kind of a little bit on the bad side, because you can share your location and stuff like that, and I guess that's good if you lose your phone and you want to find it, but it gives you not much privacy at all. Like on Snapchat, you can see your location, which is really creepy, and that's like, there's been incidents with that where it's not good. And even just on my iMessage, like my parents have my location on, which I've turned it off a couple times because I'm just not a fan of it. I just think like you have to trust me to know where I am, like. So I think that there's a really big lack of privacy, and that's where it can be kind of evil and like not that good, but that's just my personal opinion. But then within saying that, it's also good if you get kidnapped or something extreme like that. Your parents can see your location and where you are, but that's most likely a very slim possibility. Within doing all this research for this project, it really did resonate with me, because all this research about having anxiety being away from your phone and feeling isolated, depression, like all these things that go on with smartphones in this generation, like it resonates with me because I have experienced it, and I know other people close to me who have experienced it. I talked to my sisters about this, what their thoughts on, or what their thoughts were about it, and they agree, because like all this pressure with iPhones is like a real thing, and they don't go on it as much, so you just have to find a way that works for you, so you're not caught up in all the negative stuff, and you just use your iPhone for the better. Because for me personally, all these social medias and stuff, I go on like once a week or so, and I just use my smartphone to check the weather, for Google Maps, Google Translate, like the calculator, even just Google to Google things. So I use it for stuff like that, and not all the bad stuff and comparison stuff and negative mindset, and yeah. And also smartphones, I relate to it as it can be a big distraction. So when I am in class and stuff like that, I just like to put my cell phone in my bag so I'm not tempted to check it or look at it while I'm listening to the teacher. Or same thing when I'm in class, for when I'm studying and doing work as well, because if my iPhone's next to me, it makes me want to look at it and not focus on the work that I'm doing. So I put it in my drawer or something where I can't hear it go off or hear it vibrate or anything. So that helps a lot. Within saying all of that, I think that it's very interesting to learn more about media in this class and understand how it's growing, how it's affecting us, the different types of media, all that. I think it's really interesting to learn about, and I think that there is a balance with it, whether it's good or bad, and whether or not it's destroying our generation or helping our generation, because technology has come a long way since like 20 years ago. So it's definitely very interesting, and it's a really good tool that can be used. But like anything, too much of it can be negative.